This week in AI is not really about one model launch. It is about a bigger shift. The best AI products are moving away from simple chat windows and turning into full work systems. They can use a computer, run in the background, connect to company tools, write code, inspect files, generate media, and in some cases produce auditable research artifacts. So in this video, I am going to walk through the most important AI tool updates right now. OpenAI's GPT 5.6 preview, OpenAI's own data on agents at work, Claude Sonnet 5, Google's new managed agents and computer use updates, GitHub's Copilot app becoming widely available, and the science agent push from Anthropic and OpenAI. And I'm also going to add something most roundup videos skip, evidence from real agent usage studies. Because the important question is not just which lab shipped a feature, it is whether these agents are actually changing work. The main question is simple. What should you actually pay attention to and what should you try this week? Let's start with OpenAI. OpenAI is previewing the GPT 5.6 series, Sol, Terra, and Luna. The important part is not just the names. OpenAI is positioning Sol as the flagship, Terra as the balanced model, and Luna as the fast, affordable option. But the bigger story is how this model is being released. OpenAI says GPT 5.6 Sol is starting in a limited preview with trusted partners before broader availability. They also describe this as connected to government engagement and cyber safety review. That matters because frontier models are no longer launching like normal software updates. They are launching more like infrastructure, phased access, safeguards, red teaming, government visibility, and careful language around what the model can and cannot do. For builders, the practical takeaway is this. When GPT 5.6 becomes widely available, do not just test it on normal chat prompts. Test the agent features. OpenAI says GPT 5.6 introduces a max reasoning effort and an ultra mode that can use sub-agents for complex work. That is the part to watch. The question is not, is the answer better? The question is, can it plan, use tools, split work, and finish a multi-step task without falling apart? The second OpenAI update is even more important for the direction of the industry. OpenAI published a piece called How Agents Are Transforming Work. Their framing is clear. Chatbots are short interactions, but agents are delegated long horizon tasks. Instead of asking a model one question, you give an agent a goal and it works for minutes or hours, using tools and iterating. OpenAI says that inside OpenAI, Codex moved from being a developer tool to becoming the primary AI tool for work across departments, including non-technical teams like legal and recruiting. Now we should be careful here. This is OpenAI describing OpenAI's own internal usage, but the direction is still useful. The future AI interface may not be a single chat thread. It may be a task queue where you launch agents the way you launch background jobs. For creators and builders, this changes the workflow. A chatbot helps you think. An agent should help you finish. If it cannot finish, verify, and hand back useful output, it is still mostly a chatbot with extra buttons. Next is Anthropic. Anthropic launched Claude Sonnet 5 on June 30th. They describe it as the most agentic sonnet model yet. The key claim is that it can make plans, use tools like browsers and terminals, and run autonomously at a level that recently required larger and more expensive models. This is important because Sonnet is the model class many people actually use every day. The flagship Opus-style models may be stronger, but they are more expensive. If Sonnet 5 brings agentic performance closer to Opus at a lower price, that changes what teams can afford to automate. Anthropic says Sonnet 5 is available across all plans and in Claude Code and the Claude platform. It also has introductory API pricing through August 31st, 2026. The thing I would test here is not a one-shot benchmark. I would give Sonnet 5 a messy task. Inspect a small codebase, write a plan, make a change, run tests, and explain what it changed. The value of an agentic model is follow-through. And there is also a safety angle. Anthropic says Sonnet 5 is generally safer than Sonnet 4.6 in their assessments, but they still include cyber safeguards. Again, that is the pattern this week. More capable agents, but also more controls around them. Now let's move to Google. Google announced updates to managed agents in the Gemini API on July 7th. This is one of the most practical developer updates in the list. They added background execution, remote MCP server integration, custom functions, and credential refresh. That sounds technical, but the meaning is simple. If you want agents in production, they cannot depend on one fragile browser tab or one HTTP request staying open forever. They need to run in the background. They need to connect to tools. They need to use credentials safely. And they need to resume without losing state. Google says the Gemini Interactions API can handle reasoning, code execution, package installation, file management, and web information in an isolated cloud sandbox. This is very close to how people actually want agents to work. Give them a task, let them run remotely, stream progress, reconnect later, and only ask humans when a decision is needed. The part I would watch is remote MCP. MCP is becoming one of the standards for connecting AI systems to tools and data. If managed agents can connect directly to remote MCP servers, the agent stack becomes more modular. You can have your database, internal APIs, search tools, and file systems exposed through controlled tool endpoints instead of custom one-off integrations. Google also added computer use into Gemini 3.5 Flash. Computer use means the model can interact with browser, mobile, and desktop environments. It can see what is on screen, reason about it, and take actions. Google says this is now built into Gemini 3.5 Flash rather than only being a separate standalone computer use model. That is a big product direction. Computer use is moving from experimental demo into mainstream model capability. The useful examples are things like continuous software testing, browser workflows, and knowledge work inside professional apps. But this is also where safety gets serious. An agent using your browser can click the wrong thing. It can read malicious instructions hidden in a web page. It can take actions you did not intend. Google says it is using adversarial training and optional enterprise safeguards, including explicit confirmation for sensitive actions and stopping tasks if indirect prompt injection is identified. The practical takeaway is simple. If you build with computer use agents, do not only ask, can it complete the task? Ask, what actions require approval, what environment is sandboxed, and what happens when the page itself tries to manipulate the agent. Now, GitHub. On July 7th, GitHub said the Copilot app is available on every Copilot plan across macOS, Windows, and Linux. The app is for agent-driven development from the desktop. GitHub also says users can bring their own key to run sessions against their own model provider without a Copilot subscription. This matters because the coding agent market is becoming a desktop workflow, not just an IDE sidebar. You can see the direction from OpenAI Codex, Claude Code, and now GitHub Copilot's app. Developers are moving from autocomplete to agents that can open a task, inspect a repo, make changes, and return something reviewable. GitHub also had two enterprise updates that are worth mentioning. Copilot CLI in GitHub Actions can now use the built-in GitHub token, reducing the need for long-lived personal access tokens. And Copilot agent session streaming is in public preview for some enterprise customers, giving companies visibility into prompts, responses, and tool calls. That second part is important. If companies are going to let agents touch code bases, they need auditability. They need to know what the agent did, what it saw, and which tools it used. So the coding agent trend is not just better AI writes code. It is also AI work needs logs, cost controls, policy, and review. Before we move to science, it is worth asking, is this agent shift real, or is it just launch week marketing? There are a few data points that make it more serious. One archive paper studies Microsoft's early 2026 rollout of command line coding agents, including Claude Code and GitHub Copilot CLI. The paper says it looked at tens of thousands of engineers and reports that adopters merged roughly 24% more pull requests than they otherwise would have. There is a caveat. A merged pull request is not the same as business value. It does not tell us whether the code was strategically important or whether it increased maintenance burden later. But it is still useful evidence that coding agents are not just being opened once and forgotten. Another paper studies Perplexity's Comet browser assistant. That one is useful because it is not only about coding. It reports that productivity and workflow, plus learning and research, were the two biggest agentic query categories in the dataset. That maps to what we are seeing across products. Coding agents are one lane. Browser agents, research agents, science agents, and security agents are the broader lane. And then there is the Microsoft Security Copilot paper on a dynamic threat detection agent. This is a very different kind of agent, always on security investigation. The paper says it is integrated into Microsoft Security Copilot across tens of thousands of Defender customers and reports metrics like precision, median token cost, and failure rate. Again, we should attribute these numbers carefully, but this is the direction. Agents are being measured by output, cost, failure rate, precision, and auditability. That is much closer to software infrastructure than normal chatbot usage. The next trend is science. Anthropic launched Claude Science, an AI workbench for scientists. The promise is not just a chat model for research, it is a workspace that connects tools researchers already use: PubMed, Jupyter, R, terminals, scientific databases, and computing resources. Anthropic says it produces auditable artifacts and can run locally on remote machines or with high performance computing style infrastructure. This is interesting because it shows how specialized AI workbenches may develop. Instead of one generic chatbot, you get a coordinated environment for a domain. OpenAI also introduced GeneBench Pro, a benchmark for computational biology. It has 129 questions across 10 domains and is designed to test whether models can handle messy data, judgment calls, and analysis paths that matter in real research. OpenAI says reviewers estimated a typical GeneBench Pro problem could take a human expert around 20 to 40 hours. The point is not that AI has solved biology. The point is that the labs are building benchmarks and tools around long horizon research judgment, not just short answers. For viewers, the takeaway is this: the next important AI products may not look like ChatGPT clones. They may look like domain workbenches: AI for science, AI for law, AI for finance, AI for code, each with its own tools, audit trails, and safety rules. There is one more Google update worth adding if you care about content creation. Google released Nano Banana 2 Lite and brought Gemini Omni Flash to developers. Nano Banana 2 Lite is positioned as a faster, cheaper image model for high throughput workflows. Google says it can output images in about 4 seconds and costs 3.4 cents per 1K resolution image. Gemini Omni Flash is for video generation and conversational editing. Google says it is available to developers through Google AI Studio and the Gemini API, and it supports text, image, and video inputs. The limitation is important. Google says current video generations are 10 seconds and longer durations are coming later. So do not treat this as full long form video generation yet. Treat it as a tool for clips, edits, and creative iteration. For creators, the interesting workflow is chaining. Generate quick images, animate them, edit through conversation, and use those clips inside a larger human led edit. So, what is the real story this week? It is not just that OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and GitHub launched new features. It is that the shape of AI products is changing. The old model was ask a chatbot, copy the answer, do the work yourself. The new model is assign a task, let the agent use tools, monitor progress, inspect the output, and approve the result. That is why the important features this week are background execution, computer use, remote MCP, agent session logs, safety classifiers, cheaper agentic models, and domain-specific workbenches. If you want to test these tools this week, I would do three things. First, test one coding agent on a real small repo task, not a demo prompt, a real issue with tests. Second, test one computer use or managed agent workflow, but keep it sandboxed and require approval for risky actions. Third, watch which tools give you an audit trail. In serious work, the output is not enough. You need to know how the agent reached it. That is the agent era. Not magic, not fully autonomous employees, but a serious shift from AI that answers to AI that works. If this was useful, subscribe. I am going to keep tracking the tools that actually change workflows, not just the loudest model names.